Hey guys, the video that I'm posting here is really just a self-reflection video. It's about me going through the process of making an Upper Peninsula magnetic knife rack as a gift on a short time frame. And I don't know if it won't be a very good how-to video. You might get some entertainment value out of it, but it wasn't meant to educate or entertain per se. It was really just meant to help me reflect and think about, and also be a satellite memory for my process. So I'm posting it because that also helps me with like accountability and further reflection and where to find it when I want to review it later. And having it out in the abyss for someone to watch, even if no one does, that's a little something for me as far as improving my game. I'm not sure exactly how to explain it, but you'll watch me go through the process. You'll watch me work under time constraints, make decisions based on different types of criteria, and yeah, take from it what you will. So what I'm doing is I'm going to make a quick Upper Peninsula of Michigan shaped magnetic knife rack. So this is the shape that I'm going to place onto this board and cut out of it. I will be just freehanding it. You could do the printing trick and put blue painter's tape on this. Put the paper on the blue painter's tape with glue and then cut out around that. I've done that before. And there's a few other tricks, just making a grid system and drawing within the grid. I'm going to go ahead and try and freehand it because I'll know what I can do with the odd features like this, and I just enjoy getting something just done. You know, don't have to print, don't have to get tape, don't have to find glue. This just requires a pencil and a little bit of drawing skill. Drawing tips to keep in mind is try not to think about what you're actually drawing. I'm not drawing the UP, I'm drawing a bunch of lines that when put together look like the UP. A good trick that I got from Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain, I think is the name of the book, was to flip the image upside down and draw it that way. And that helps kind of build a disconnect between what your brain recognizes it as, because it wants it to be the UP, and the fact that it's actual lines. And when you're drawing, you want to be in the mindset that it's just lines, not the UP, because then you get too macro of a view and not enough of a micro view to get the lines where they need to be. No more rock, time to plane. I'm not gonna plane it all the way because you can see that it thins out down there. By the time I was done, I'd have way too thin of a board to get magnets into the back of. So a quick drawing tip is to think in proportions. So for example, the distance from here to here would be, if we said that was 1, what would the distance from here to where this Garden Peninsula, actually that's the Garden Peninsula, Garden Peninsula's where the tip of this Wisconsin border is? Well, it's about half, a little less than half. So I use that proportion, that ratio. I start with my 1s, and then I start with my 1s vertically, and then I go with, okay, about half, and I draw my dot there for my lowest point. And I go with, all right, the next big landmark, let's just use the Keweenaw here. It's about maybe 1/4, 1/3 to the tip. So then I think about my distance here from my tip to tip latitudinally, and then I lay out that dot, and I'm kind of creating a connect the dots thing, but just thinking, okay, that's about 1/4 the distance, that's about 1/2 the distance. Proportionally helps with your layout. And not too bad for a first try. A few adjustments will need to be made. However, there's a few things I'd try and remind folks when they're drawing. With students, now if I worked with kindergartners, I'd say, oh, everyone just drew a UP, you know, and no one would care how the UPs looked or would be busy playing self-judge or other people judge or anything else. Bring teenagers to the table, you get a completely heartbreaking, really, reaction. That would be like what I just showed you would just be awful in their eyes if they did that, if they drew what I did. Now, is it recognizable? Yes. Is it more recognizable than a board with nothing on it? Absolutely. Is anything that's a challenge going to be easily accomplished the first time? No. If that was the case, video games would not be appealing. So even video games have a level of challenges to them. I have to include this motivational pep talk every time I talk about drawing, because it is heartbreaking that the self-judgment in some of us is so strong we'll never get this far along. So if nothing else, always remember to turn that self-judgment dial down to negative 478 and just do. And if you don't like it, just do again. And if you don't like it, just do again. But if you're more busy judging than doing, you'll never get a point where you could escape that judgment anyways. So turn it off. Now that that rant is over, I am going to do some touching up. But in the spirit of everything I just said, when I draw, I do not utilize an eraser. I'm okay with the mistakes I make. I'm going to own them. I'm going to utilize darker lines and lighter lines where I need to. But if I go down the road of perfection, I will never finish. So you can see I did some touching up here. Just brought the Kiwana in a little bit skinnier. He looked a little kind of chubby there. And then kind of narrowed, same here, looked just a little bit chubby here, so narrowed some things out. I did some shading just so I could visualize around my non-erased pencil marks. And again, done is better than perfect, because perfect's never done, so I'm gonna call it a stopping point here. Another tip I recommend if you're susceptible for the perfection, I'm gonna call it an excuse, because a lot of us utilize perfection as an excuse to just not have to execute on a task. Set yourself a time limit. I could sit here all day and improve this UP. Seriously. But nope, we're under pressure. We've got a time limit. I've made it a little bit better, and it's time to move forward. When you find yourself pursuing perfection, give yourself a time limit with the self-judgment dial turned down, and when you reach that landmark, that time mark, move on. In this video, I'm not showing a lot of the processes just because I'm just doing a quick video mainly for YouTube practice, and if it brings you value, cool. But I do want to go ahead and show a common thing that happens. Students will come to the bandsaw, to have their shape drawn up, and the first thing they'll do is cut everything like down to small size. Think about your long cuts that you need to make and your more technical cuts, and what handling material do you need to have, because I'm using this piece a lot right now as I travel along. It's given me more control and everything else. The other thing is utilize relief cuts every half an inch. They make the job so much easier. So keep material on your project. We've done spoons before. First thing the student does, cuts the blank that big. You can't handle it there. You can't manage the material. Get your design cut mostly, but leave some material on there for you to handle. Here we go. And I will admit, even right now, I'm struggling a little bit with the self-judgment thing. Of course, I'm seeing things that could be better. Here's the mental motto I want you to keep in mind. Sat down to eat at a meal, and maybe the first thing that happens from whoever cooked the meal, your mom, your girlfriend, your wife, your partner, your husband, the first thing they do is they start grilling themselves. They start saying, oh, I should have done this. The recipe called for that. This is a little undercooked. This is a little overcooked. And the unfortunate part about that is a lot of times, I mean, it may not make the meal worse or taste bad, and of course usually you validate the person, oh no, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. But I find that the experience, it does take away from the experience when you realize you have to validate this person's already perfectly good meal. And same thing goes with furniture construction. You don't have to point out every flaw to your clients. They want to enjoy the experience of the product. Your patrons want to enjoy the experience of a meal. You want to utilize that same kind of mindset with yourself. You should be, sure, notice things here and there. Notice things when you go out to eat or someone serves you a meal. Things could be better, things could be worse, okay? But don't detract from the experience with that noticing. As soon as you realize it starts taking away from the experience, just stop the self-judgment and move forward. Use the spindle sander here to kind of touch up some edges, and yeah, the bandsaw marks, the burn marks, you know, proper setup, maybe a fresh blade, the right blade for the job. And I am on a time constraint, so I'm doing a little bit of rushing. I'm going to leave some of those, but I did make sure to, as I was cutting, carefully not include any major bandsaw errors. Sometimes I'll see work, and you can see where the bandsaw went past this point and all the way into the part, and then those will just be left behind. A few tricks to make sure that doesn't happen is always leave the line. So whatever line you drew, make sure you leave it. You can always sand up to it. I once didn't leave the line in a class. Man, I learned my lesson good from the instructor. So make sure you always leave the line, and then as I'm sanding it with this spindle sander here, I'm still using that line as a gauge, because if that line starts to disappear, I know I'm going to have an irregularity in my original drawing. And I didn't want to get too crazy with this because I have seen projects too where it's obvious it's been spindle sanded the whole way around, and it just kind of becomes kind of flubbery. It's geography, it is going to be choppy, it's terrain, it's land. So I'm going to leave things kind of as they are for right now, sand and install magnets. So I am drilling the mounting holes. Basically, I've just decided that it's just going to screw into the wall for hanging, and to do so I just drilled clearance holes big enough that a number 8 screw, one of the most common screw sizes, could fit through there, and then I am countersinking it with that bit just until the screw head is sitting nice and flush with the part here. And I'm kind of just freehanding this part of the operation. Now, part of the reason I did that step now, you can see got it nice and flush, was so that when I start adding the holes for those magnets, I know I'm not going to intervene with those pre-drilled holes. I know I got to land somewhere in here. What I did here was I set the stop on my drill press just so it would not go through the board. And then I drilled these 5/8 inch holes. I have these 1/4 inch. If you work with these, please be very, very careful. By 5/8 diameter magnets. I think they're like the N52 magnets. They're about $2 a piece. Can't remember which magnet supplier I got them from. And then I just put one in every single hole. I carefully set those down, and I'll show you that this thing will now hold a file. If I can show you one, got the answer to that question. I cannot show you one-handed, but ta-da! File is hanging. Some assistance given from the edge there. I don't know, like, I guess we can try it upside down and see what happens. Yeah, but this is a lot heavier than most of the knives, plus we'll have some extra magnets going in. Tested it with a few tools, including this. This one works pretty well. If you put the handle down, it does want to slide a little bit. This one will work either way. And so I think it's pretty knife strong ready. Now, I already put the magnets in, so I sure hope so. This is something you do want to take a little bit seriously. This is for a friend, so I know there's a level of forgiveness there, which I don't want to utilize if I don't have to, but you obviously don't want knives just falling down. You know, they might stick in your counter or worse, off your hand. So there's a safety concern here. Now, one thing that can be done if you utilize this style magnets and inset them like that, or inlay them in like that, is I think if I was to do it again just for extra caution, I would just grind the tip off of that Forstner bit right there and go a little bit deeper into the board. With that tip, I lose about 1/8 of an inch that I can't quite get up closer to. So I would, yeah, that's one solution. Or you could just make that part of your design that the tip goes all the way through. You'd get little pinholes on the front side of your design that would have a shiny metallic little thing shining through them. So I could imagine some of you come up with some sort of creative look doing that. I think this is going to be kind of fun because the magnets are in there, so they're just going to act as a clamp just for, I mean, that thing just sticks there. I didn't glue or anything those in, I just pushed them in. I think they're going to be fine just like that. So yeah, I'm going to stick to the base, clamp it down, try and get a coat of finish on it. This is for tonight's birthday party. But the reason I want to do this now, oh my gosh, I'm getting a migraine. I just want to get a coat of finish on it and go get this migraine gotten rid of before this birthday party starts. To vacuum the dust off in between grits. And then the other thing I do, little pencil trick. I used to just scribble in pencil so I knew what I sanded and what I didn't. And this part, I probably won't do this the whole way through because it's a pretty simple part. But what I've started doing, because I'd get interrupted enough times, is I'd write the next grit I need to erase. So I just did 80, 120, I'll go until the pencil marks disappear, and then I'll continuously vacuum, re-scribble, rewrite the grit, sand, vacuum, until I get up to about 220. All right, sanded smooth. I'm just gonna go grab a small file and break these edges just to kind of give it that framed in look. This is where I want to be really careful on this Keweenaw, especially pulling it up and not down off of any magnetic base, because I'm going to use this as my vise pretty much, and just file and whatnot. Now, if you were working with a more brittle material or a questionable material, what I would probably have done, and I almost did it this time around, but I just got a little cocky, was when it's one rectangular board, lay out your UP, and where the Keweenaw crosses, go ahead and cut that rectangular board into 2 strips. Here, add a dowel joint that would go up and support the Keweenaw and come down through the UP, just so that that doesn't break off. So that's a little trick you can use for any details that are kind of fingery like this, where they're at risk of breaking off, is before you give it that organic look, that organic shape, work with it in its square, regular shape, and go ahead and pre-engineer some integrity. File I used, I bought these originally to see if they would work on PLA plastic for the 3D printing we do, but I find them to be pretty handy for these types of applications. So I was able to put a little bit of a shadow line on there. You know, best practice be go and smooth the shadow line out and everything else, get rid of all your burn marks. But we are coming down on the final stretch here time-wise, and kind of like the drawing phase, I'm going to just give myself the deadline of, all right, the shadow line's done, which you can't tell very well in the video, that it does kind of add a little bit of a look to it, and time to get some polyurethane on there and hopefully sleep away this migraine. Magnets popped out when I had it sticking onto that metal base there. When you go to put these in, I highly recommend, what I'm going to do is cover this up with a piece of scrap wood, cover that up with a clamp or just something that is sturdy to put this in, because these things will jump and just cinch. And I haven't done it yet, knock on wood, but it will be a finger pincher, and you'll be using the words your mom told you not to use, that's for sure. I find this product to be pretty handy for quick projects. It is a little stinky. I can't wait till they make something like this, good quality finish that isn't stinky, but you know, it's one of those, I think you can't have your cakes and eat it too situations. But I'm gonna go ahead and I just stuck it to this file cabinet. Not worried about a little overspray getting on this file cabinet. Throw a coat on there and review the directions. Plus, I usually kind of follow like a Steve Ramsey's got a video on how to do these types of finishes pretty quick. I think that's why I moved to this product in these situations. And try and get a few coats on it here before we gotta leave. And let's see here, less than 4 hours, so go time. 3 coats of 320 grit. Oh, I'm sorry. 3 coats of light spray polyurethane. Then sanded with 320, 400, 600, 320 this way, 400 this way, 600 this way. One more very light coat of spray polyurethane on top of that nice leveled out finish. And a little bit of a brown paper towel rub down. One-handed, left-handed, and we will have a smooth finished product just in time for the birthday party. I talk about these with my students a lot. Look at that blubber of a UP. Now, you can see here, what is it? Across the 90s and in the 2000s, they were able to get a little bit better. Let's see how we did here. So there you have it. There was just some sound bites, some motivational thought processes as well recorded in that process. And one of those being just be biased to action. Just do things. Set yourselves time constraints. And that's also the posting of this video is being performed under. I started with a cup of coffee. I got things to do. Actually, when that cup of coffee's gone, this video will be done. So, very minimum editing and the video is done.